provide resources, staff resources, and backup. We're aiming for a goal. We've got a clear goal, good terms of reference, and the job's done, they're finished, and we can say thanks, and they can get back to their lives. And so we've worked with working groups and task forces rather than creating more committees. And that's, so the civic facilities have been benefited from that. They've just wrapped up their work and completed, but they'll revive themselves in a new form under a new name. That's their suggestion. Transportation Working Group provided us their important report and concluded their work. Surplus Lands Working Group is still working with us because we have yet to sort of complete the sale of lands. The Task Force on the Finance Group, they concluded their policy work and have finished. Ongoing work continues with the Sustainable Framework Working Group, the Affordable Housing Working Group, and the one committee we did create because we consider this an ongoing requirement for the municipalities to have ongoing advice regarding greenways. And that's really all about parks, trails, recreational corridors, ecotourism, and ecological protection on the island. A real strategy has been to get partners, better funded than ourselves, to invest in Bowen infrastructure. And so the underground thing I talked about is a big example of that. But also, the West Van School District is putting up a quarter of the funding for the all-weather field. And we are currently working with TransLink on the bus, Hydro on energy conservation, and ferries on the terminal improvements. And to wrap it up, I guess that brings us back to where we are right now. I mentioned this at the beginning, that we started with the website in our efforts to communicate better with the community. Various reports have been an attempt to sort of highlight key issues along the way. BIMLink really is becoming an important tool, and we'd like a much broader sort of use of that because there's a lot of good information in there. Articles in the undercurrent will sort of continue, and these town hall meetings, which is where we are right now and where I'd like to conclude, really are sort of this new enterprise of having a good conversation with the community in an ongoing fashion. So I'd like to leave it there. And this is the point where we now sort of move to sort of our question and answer period. And just before we do that, I'd like to go through sort of some introductions. We've got a whole bunch of counselors here and staff here, and so I'd like to do that. And then make a pause. We've got a whole bunch of people standing. Maybe we can find some seats, and then we'll get into the whole questions and answers, and that's the big show. So could I start maybe at the far end? Lisa?
I'm Lisa Barrett, Councillor.
I'm Lisa Shansky.
David Rich. Peter Frinton. David Hawking.
Kathy Lalonde, and I'm the Code Officer.
Brian Kirby, CAO.
Melissa Mears.
Jason Smith, the community planner.
Brian Middleton, Fire Chief.
Kristen Watson, Deputy Treasurer.
Michael Rosen.
And our faithful recorder in the back, Gail. So why don't we just take a moment to sort of find seats, and then we'll get right into the questions. We've got a speakers list. We're going to go through the speakers list, and then I'm going to dive into the questions that have been written, and then we'll go back to any names that are on the speakers list. Does that sound okay?
There's a second list.
There's a second list. So the first question, by the way, just as a, you can ask a question of a council member or a staff member that sort of is specific to sort of their area of expertise. The goal here really, every week we get together at 7:15, and council's got lots of opportunity week after week after week to debate stuff. So we're not here to debate stuff, we're here to listen to you. So, but we want to answer the questions. So you can direct them wherever you feel, or if it's a general question, you don't have to direct it at all. I'll just sort of look for hands of people who want to sort of take the question. We'll do it that way. So let's just start with Bruce Howard. Where are you, Bruce? Yeah.
Thanks, Bill. First of all, is it coming through?
It's not a microphone.
Yeah, as long as you hold it sort of chest tight.
First of all, thanks to Bob and the council for doing this. I'm sorry that it didn't happen a few years ago, but it's a good idea. And I think
It's not a microphone.
Not a microphone,
I
okay.
think if you just hold it about chest height, that's adequate, and you speak to the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that, judging on the audience, I'd like to see this move to a larger venue in the future. I was going to talk about Dorman Road, but there are other people here who are going to do that. I think that you know something about it. I've written to you about it. I'm sorry that the administration did not take account of the work of BC Hydro and try and get the road repaired for virtually nothing by coordinating with them. That didn't happen, and so we're now stuck with widening Dorman Road at our cost, and I think we could have done otherwise. But that will be dealt with by others in a short time, because a second petition is coming to you today. I think in a more general character, what I think I'm disappointed with is that the council did not grapple with revising the official community plan. Instead, it spent money on doing a rather extensive study of the code and other things, but this wasn't done within context. Because what happens in the code is affected by the growth of the entire island. And I think you have to interrelate the two. I think that the code is an outgrowth of the growth and development of Bowen Island itself. So I'm sorry that didn't happen. I hope that it will be addressed sometime in the future. Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce. So I heard three sort of comments that deserve sort of, or sort of questions or comments that we should respond to. The first is, it would be good to hold this in a bigger place. We agree. This was the biggest place that we find when we lined up today as our dedicated. But something like Gatesville Chapel was really what we were aiming for. But the Legion's a wonderful place.
This is great.
The second thing about Dorman Road, did you want to leave that until others speak to it?
Let others speak.
Yeah. Okay. And then the third question is really why not approach Snug Cove planning through a full OCP review? Michael, do you want to speak to that?
I knew I should have sat in the back. Well, Bruce, in a perfect world, any planning exercise you do on a micro level is done in the context of the macro level. And of course, there is a community plan in place, and it was, I think it dates back to the mid-90s.
It's a long time ago.
So typically, communities update their OCPs every 5 to 7 years. There's no mandate to do it, but that's what typically happens. So clearly, one is ready to be reviewed on Bowen. But notwithstanding that hasn't happened, the current OCP does provide a context, and it does talk about the cove as being like the focal point of the community and the place where there should be commerce and housing and recreation. So while it would be great to have a new OCP that reflects the most current vision of the island, the other work that is being done within the existing vision, the existing context. And I guess it'll be up to council and the community to determine, whether there's time, resources, energy to in fact embark upon an OCP amendment process. Because as you well know, it's going to take a lot of energy, time, and resources because it's a big exercise. So that'll be something for either this council or subsequent councils to consider.
I saw Dave and then Peter's hands go up. Wanted to add?
Thanks, Bruce. Yes, I think there are a couple of ways to answer your question. First of all, that Snug Cove master planning, which I guess is what you're referring to, that work was done to address some specific things, some specific needs that we had. We needed to make sure that we were situating the civic facilities in the appropriate spot, and that's really what kind of drove that. So it wasn't an attempt to sort of redo and relook at the entire cove within the context of the island. It was an attempt to look at the planning of the cove and make sure that the civic facilities were situated in the right spot. Now, when we did that work, one of the comments that came out among a lot of people is, well, really, it's what you said. A master plan for Snug Cove has to be considered within the planning context for the whole island. And so that's certainly, that comment has been well taken. And I could tell you that I was at a meeting with the Advisory Planning Commission Wednesday night, And we're having a discussion at that group, looking at the official community plan in light